Welcome to another episode of Off Script with Rip. I'm your host, Ryan Ripken, and this is a podcast where I bring on guests from a variety of different industries to talk about their story. And regardless of the path they have chosen to take, I promise you, if you listen to the words, there are many things that you can relate and resonate with. But for some reason, if you can't, I promise you there are a lot of great stories to be had and to listen to. And for this week's guest, episode 9, it is my friend Jon Graham, or Big JG. He is a former college basketball player that played at Penn State and the University of Maryland. And Jon actually and I have a lot in common in the sense where we grew up with expectations thrusted upon ourselves. Now, for me, my dad played baseball professionally for the Orioles. If you're from the Baltimore, Maryland area, just in general region, you're a fan of the Terps in the 70s and 80s, you know Ernie Graham. He was a legend at Maryland, and that is Jon's dad. He's one of the best basketball players to walk through that university. And so growing up for Jon, especially in the Maryland area, there were certain things expected of him that were out of his control. So in this episode, we touch on the expectations. We touch on Jon growing up and what it was like for him as a kid to try to find himself going through high school. We also touch on the recruitment process going to college, how the game of college basketball has evolved since he's been there, and then really trying to find yourself as you're moving on in your life and you're moving away from a sport, passion, or job that you're really dedicated really the majority of your time to. So I'm going to take a step back, but before I take a step back, I would also encourage you, for you all, please to like and subscribe to the Off Script with Rip podcast. Leave a review. All of this would be extremely beneficial for me because at the end of the day, I want to make this a better experience for everyone that listens out there. So now I will officially take a step back. And here is episode 9 with Jon Graham. Welcome back to another episode of Off Script with Rip. I'm your host, Ryan Ripken, and this week's guest is my friend, Jon Graham, JG, however you want to call him. But Jon, we've been talking about it for a while, but I'm glad you're finally able to get on the pod.
It's an honor to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course. I mean, it took a while. We were supposed to do this 2 hours ago. I am not the best with my time management, but you were on time. But that's just how shit goes. We're working on it, and yeah, I'm having a little bit more energy. I'm picking it up finally.
There you go.
But so just for the listeners to get a little bit more about you, and I have the intro, but tell us a little bit about Jon Graham. You're a Baltimore guy, but give us a little lowdown of where you're from, what you did, and kind of going through your high school experience.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm a Baltimore guy. I actually finally moved into the city about 2 years ago. But before that, spent most of my life in Baltimore County. Went to high school at Calvert Hall, played basketball there, as many know. For college, ended up going to Penn State for about 3 years of my career. Finished out the last 2 at my dream school, University of Maryland.
Terps, baby. Go Terps. That's
yes, sir.
And we'll dive into more of that later about how it definitely means more to you, being a Maryland guy and running the family. And I get it. I had a similar feeling with me with the Orioles, but we'll touch on it. But we do have a lot of similarities, though, with growing up in the area, dealing with a name. And for those that didn't recognize Graham, if you didn't, Jon's dad, Ernie, was a Maryland legend at the University of Maryland. Just like if you know Calvin Edwin Ripken Jr. in Baltimore, he did some things for the Orioles as well. So understanding growing up, and then we both played the same sport that our fathers had a lot of success in. Yep. First off, I'm sorry you went to Hall. I actually do have a lot of friends that went to Calvert Hall. But I was a Gilman Greyhound, so we never saw. I'm glad. I think I only played you like once in a scrimmage, by the way.
I think we had one game against Gilman. I think you guys still had Cyrus. Yeah, the one game we had, pretty sure you had like 35 or 40, but we still ended up winning about 20, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, you guys were good. Speaking about your team, I forget who else you had. It was you, forget the middle player, but then you guys had Damian Lee,
yep,
who at the time I think was going to Drexel out of Calvert Hall.
So Damian and the other guys, Kyle Wise, Danye Jackson.
That's who they were.
Yeah, but Damian at the time was actually on his way to prep school after high school.
Before
he made his way to Drexel and eventually Louisville, and we'll be seeing him as today. So.
Dude, that's nuts because it's, and again, I think for people that's listening, I actually just dropped something on social whenever this airs, so it'd be yesterday, about advice for going to places that best fit you. But anyway, back to stuff with growing up with a name. That was something for me personally. I didn't understand it as a kid. Did you understand at the time of how successful your dad was or how people viewed your dad at a young age as a basketball player?
So it's funny. When I was a kid, I didn't want anything to do with basketball. Naturally, I kind of gravitated more towards, computers, video games. I was a real gamer nerd back then. And funny enough, I did karate for self-defense. And it was my karate teacher that told me about my dad's history with basketball, because he didn't really talk to me a lot about it. I heard more of the story from him, and then I got curious. And by this time, I'm about like 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing the story. I'm like, well, Dad, what else are you not telling me? Like, I want to know more about this. What'd you do at Maryland? Where are the tapes? Is there anything else? Like, and before I knew it, we went to Maryland's Midnight Madness, which always fell around my birthday. Their first official practice would always fall around my birthday. So I would get a bunch of my friends. We would go out there and we would just check out the festivities and everything. And I looked around at the jerseys that they hang up. My dad's jersey wasn't up there. And I asked him, like, well, why is your jersey not up there? I heard about the story with you scoring 44 in one game. That hasn't been done before. Still hasn't been broken to this day without a three-point line. So where's your jersey? And I just remember, like, what he told me. And I was just like, it's something that night I'll never forget it, because that's what sparked me to, like, want to play basketball and one day make it to Maryland to try to do really the craziest thing ever, like just try to break his scoring record, be a good enough player to get my jersey retired up so our names would be up there.
Yeah.
And so it really all started that day, like, from my karate teacher of all people, when I really got more curious about the game of basketball.
So that's not where I thought that was going to go, because
no one did.
No, but for me, it was, I grew up and I was in a locker room. So my dad was still playing at the time and I could be around that. So I saw what he accomplished.
Yeah.
But for you had no idea that.
I didn't know a lot about it. Like, I knew my dad was a basketball player. I knew that some people knew him, but I didn't know, like, the real story.
So before the karate situation, you were just thought, oh, my dad played he liked playing basketball. He played in college.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's basically it. I was a total gamer nerd and the computers and all that stuff. I didn't even really watch basketball that much.
Well, yeah, you definitely are. Are you still up to date on your karate?
Absolutely not.
No? Okay, well, I was going to say, we'll scratch that then. But the part that's interesting to me, because your dad then, what year did your dad graduate from Maryland?
I want to say he left school, I think, in 79 or 80.
Right.
He recently went back while I was in school, like, to take a couple of classes to move towards his degree. But he definitely he left back in, I want to say, 79. Right before Len Bias came in.
Yeah. So I was about to say, it's right around the time where Maryland basketball, and they're trying to get back to the way that they were. And, 20 years ago was when Maryland, being the Final Four championship contenders that they were. Yep. But it was that 80s time where late 70s, 80s, where everyone loved the basketball team and the talent that they had.
Absolutely.
So, and that's the thing. For people who don't know Len Bias, you should go look him up too. People thought Len Bias was going to be, he was supposed to be Jordan. Like, people thought that's who it was going to be.
I looked at Len Bias like as the LeBron before LeBron in the 80s. Like, just, he had a complete package. Like, just a freak athlete.
Yeah.
Amazing skill. Could run it down the floor with anybody. Like, the Celtics were on their way to being even more of a dynasty, because they still had Bird in the crew, and they were going to draft this guy. From, like, when you watch 30 for 30, the Celtics kept coming up with his name.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing with so to wrap up what happened with Len Bias, unfortunately, just shows you how fragile life can be. Had a issue with drugs one time, stopped his heart, and that's it, and then your life changes just like that. But right, so, but at the time, so if Len Bias had the greatness that everyone thought he could be, your dad, from when I even talked to people around, or even, my mom went to Maryland, my dad being from there, everyone talked about it. Your dad was one of the guys being like, Ernie is the guy at Maryland. And I think that was a cool thing. So after you found out at that young age and you wanted to play basketball, it sounds like you're more motivated than feeling the pressures or expectations of trying to, walk in those shoes.
The pressure came later. When I was a kid, it was about a lot of things, man. Because, like, I was a kid that grew up in Baltimore County, and I played a lot of basketball in inner city Baltimore. Mm-hmm. So the kids there had a different mindset, a different life from what I had, growing up. And they would try to, like, make me feel uncomfortable about it. They would try to say, like, that, okay, you're different, like, you talk different, proper, whatever you want to call it. You're not from the hood. You don't belong here. All that stuff. You're soft. The thing that always ticked me off the most was that you're soft. And, like, ever since I can remember, that's the one. If you ever call me soft, that's the one thing that got me going on the court. And it's like, the first thing I wanted to do was show you up. It had nothing to do about my dad or anything like that. It was about me proving myself that I belonged here, and you can't put me in a box.
Yeah.
And that was just an added motivation that I had before I even thought about the pressure. Because I think as I got older, the pressure started to become more present.
Yeah.
It's like, my dad's a great player, a Maryland legend. I gotta get up there, you know what I'm saying? So, and as you understand, you want to get up there with what your dad was doing. You want people to talk about you like they talked about your dad.
Right. Yeah. You want to make your own path. So just to circle back right there, the frustrations of this wasn't a case of, with anything with your name for this per se, but because of what you're, where you grew up and what you were doing, people viewed you differently, and it's the same case for me where it's out of your control of what you're doing. My dad had a successful career, put me in a position, I go to a good school.
Yep.
And then people already have a preconceived notion. Like to your point, like that shit bothered me that people already had an idea. And talking about with you being soft, and you're right. I will say, I remember always playing, no matter where I did or where I went, there was always going to be a comment, but it wasn't about necessarily a shot at my dad or, being the son of somebody. It was more of a shot at the lifestyle that you got brought up in. And to your point, that is frustrating in itself because you don't, at that age, did you prove them wrong though?
Yeah, they end up paying for it.
But that's unfortunately, you didn't cause anything like that, but you're getting attacked. Was that something that it took you a while to get over, to come to terms with? I know you can get pissed off on the court and play. Did it always feel like it was an uphill battle for you?
Of course, man, absolutely. Like off the court was tough too. It's like it was hard for me to really I can go back as far as 10 years old. It was hard for me to really have conversations with my teammates off the court because I feel like I just didn't really have anything to talk about with them. I used to hide a lot of the music that I liked because I was around them. I would listen to one genre of music, what they liked. I would learn to kind of just say, okay, this is the music I need to listen to. All the other stuff that I like, put that aside until I go home. And, I just always felt like I was kind of like just an outcast. And it just kind of stuck with me for a good amount of years, definitely going into my teenage years as well.
So when did you feel like that started to change? Because I think that people forget that being a young kid or teenager, as much as it's simple in the sense that, you already, things are planned out. You're going to school. You'll be off in the summer. Or X, Y, and Z. It's already, you're not an adult. You don't know who you are.
Yeah.
When did you start to kind of feel that change? You said your teenage years, but when did you start to open up with, I guess, being more comfortable with who you were in that setting?
To be honest, man, I didn't really start feeling like I was opening up until I think my first year at Maryland.
Really?
When I came home, and even more so, 3 years ago. That's when I really started to accept, look, man, I like this kind of music. I like doing certain things that maybe wouldn't be expected for a guy that looks like me.
Yeah.
But I learned to accept that. It was like, hey, this is me, and this makes me it's who I am.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to understand there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
That it's okay to be Jon. Is everyone gonna be cool with it? Probably not. That's not. We don't live in a perfect world. In fact, why would you want everyone to be cool with who you are? Because you want people that care about you for who you are, not for what you can give them, where they can take you. They're cool with you and they love you because you are just being yourself. And it took me a very long time to get to that point.
Yeah, I still felt that. I'm glad you even brought up saying to these days, to this day or the last few years, because it's hard to understand as a kid, but the shit just keeps going as you get older, and that's something that I felt. Things you wanted to please the crowds, you wanted to fit in, you wanted to be that person that could, go with the flow with everything. But at a certain point, you felt like you weren't being true to yourself.
No, I was always putting on a mask. I was always, trying to just try to be somebody else that I wasn't, to try to fit in with the crowd, try to not be looked at any differently or feel like an outcast.
That just sounds exhausting at the same time.
It's crazy exhausting, man. And it happened when I dropped my first book of poetry. That was a part of me that I had since I was 16 when I really first discovered that. But I'm black. I'm a basketball player. I live in Baltimore. You ain't supposed to do that.
Right.
That's not what you do. You're not supposed to put off that persona. People ain't supposed to know about that.
Yeah.
Guys are gonna think you're soft. Girls are gonna think you're soft. Doesn't really impress them. You look like a little, whatever. You look like a pussy.
Yeah.
Being totally honest with you. But when I dropped that book, I felt this big weight just be lifted. I was like, man, I'm so happy I did this. Why the hell did I wait so long to do this?
Yeah.
It was just so, it's hard to describe, man. It was just such a freeing feeling that I'm so glad I did. And again, it allowed me to kind of bridge that gap that I built with myself to say, look, be yourself, enjoy yourself. Because like, man, like it's great qualities about yourself that you're not sharing with the world and you're not sharing with yourself.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, man, it was freeing, and I felt more so complete about being okay with me.
Yeah, I mean, I love that right there. Be yourself, enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard it that way before. Maybe the light bulb's going off for me right now, but I love that because I feel like you're gonna agonize over so many things, and even from this case for me, I've told this before. The whole podcast stuff for me, I wish I did more, theater. I wish I did more acting. I wish I showed more sides of me when I was younger because you enjoy it, but you feel like you got to live up to a certain standard of what society wants you to be. And I think we're in a time frame now or day and age where people are expressing themselves more, right? Like the world is doing that.
Yeah, man.
But still to your point, when we were growing up, and this was still in the last 10, 15 years, you didn't feel that way. You felt like you had to be careful.
Yep.
And I love the fact that you're an expressive person, but that's what makes you you.
Yeah, man.
And I mean, it's crazy for me to think that you were hiding about showing yourself for so long, but we see it with a ton. It's not just us. I mean, I hope whoever's listening to this understands. I mean, could be anybody. I feel you're lying to yourself if you haven't not been yourself at least at one point in your life.
Definitely. And it's not easy. I credit everyone who were examples for me, like, saying that they're okay with opening up and being completely honest with themselves. They're open with being silly. Like y'all see me on social media, some of the silly stuff I do. But man, like that's always been me.
Yeah.
Like I held that back for so long because I was so afraid of being looked at weirdly, or my dad is who he is.
Yeah.
Famous basketball player. What's his son doing? Why is he not playing basketball? That's the other thing that, I'll be honest, took me to a dark place when I first retired, coming back from Spain, because I felt like I didn't have anything else. I felt like I was really a waste of space, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to get over that and to say, look, man, you're so much more than just a sport. You've been playing it for a long time. It's become a part of you. But you need to discover, or in this case, rediscover who you were before it and who you always have been. But you were so masked up, and as they tell you, you got to put your soul into it if you're going to do this sport. You got to put your all into it. You got to put your soul into it. This has to be who you are, in a sense. But we lose track, and I lost track of who I was. I made the game me, and I shouldn't have did it. It was something that I do, not who I am.
Right.
And somewhere along the line, I lost track of that.
Yeah. The whole thing, and we're actually at the end of that. That's going to be a big segment of finding yourself when you're moving on and not having a game or whatever your job, your industry define you as a person.
Yep.
So I think that hammers it home. And I literally went through the exact same thing, just different sports of finding ourselves after. But before we get into that, talk to me about, you're in high school and then you're looking at the process of going to college. And you already know that the thought process is to go to Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
You want to, but maybe just talk about your recruiting process.
So, yeah, Maryland was brought up a million times, to say the least, because everyone knew who my dad was. I ended up being a pretty good player in high school. Mm-hmm. Everyone was like, the writings on the wall. You're going to Maryland. You're going to play for Gary. You're going to be the next Terp star to follow your dad. So Maryland wanted me to go to prep school, actually, coming in on my senior year. I didn't want to do that. Right. So for now, I kind of I had to put it aside me that Maryland wasn't going to happen. So enter Penn State, enter Tulane, Marshall, schools like that. VCU wanted me to commit early. Like I think the start of my junior year, they wanted me to commit. And ironically, my freshman year, when I don't go there, that's the year they go to the Final Four.
With Shaka Smart.
With Shaka Smart in that 2011 team. That's the year they go to the Final Four. So I'm like, well, shit, I could have been there. But, the process was interesting. A lot of people don't know. I came very close to committing to Seton Hall. They were a great program for me. Like, the offense was awesome. I met the coach. We took an official visit up there, met the coach again, went to the locker room, the whole deal. Season's over, he gets fired. Mm-hmm. So now, boom, now we're back to square one. Yeah. And I remember being in weight training at Calvert Hall, and then this dude, Lewis Preston, who was an assistant coach at the time, shout out to him, comes in with this shirt, and I'm like, I recognize that logo. I'm like, that's Penn State. Like, they got a basketball team? Like, I look at my teammates like, wait, I know about Joe Paterno, I know about football, but like, these guys got a basketball team? I was like, no way. So fast forward, and like, my dad and I take a visit up there. It's like, we have no idea what we're going to find. We're thinking, Penn State, rugged football town, Happy Valley. Man, we get up there, like, we take that drive, and we see the Bryce Jordan Center where they play. The sun is literally, like, at perfect golden hour time. And it's like, we just looked at each other and was like, this might be the place. Like, we don't know what it is, but, like, there's a sign saying,
there's
like,
a sign telling you.
Yeah, literally.
It's picturesque right there. And so did you find then, were you worried about the whole process then? I mean, you're talking about, or did you think that you were confident no matter what it was going to work out? To at least go play college basketball. Take out the fact that you ended up transferring to Maryland, but just the process of high school to college, and you thought you would, Seton Hall, you thought that was going to be the option, and then you're back to square one. Was this an anxious time for you, or was it more okay?
Oh yeah, definitely anxious times. Like, because again, it was a coach that I actually liked and not trusted, which is hard to come by.
Yeah,
you're just meeting the guy. You're signing on to play for a person. They're supposed to take care of you, and you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. So you want to make sure that you made the best decision possible. So when he got fired, going back to square one, I was like, all right, I'm not sure what to do now. But like I said, we had that sign, and then we met coach, we met the athletic director, we met some of the team, and like everything was just like, it was calm. Yeah. I felt welcome. I felt like this is something that I could do, but which was at the time was great because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. The schools that I was talking about, they weren't exactly in the most stable condition with coaching staffs or players are getting a transferring or getting drafted. Like, it's a whole lot of movement that can happen that changes everything in an instant. So I was just now starting to understand that, and it became more and more nerve wracking. Like, say, okay, well, damn, like, is this a good year for me? Do I need to go to prep school?
Yeah.
In the back of my head, I was like, it's essentially doing another year of high school. Like, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I was ready for college. I was ready for not just college basketball, but the college lifestyle. I was ready.
You're ready for the next step.
Yeah, I was ready to branch out and just kind of see start finding out who I am. Because as you said, right on time of your life, you're trying to figure out who you are and like outside of the bubble that you've been in, which is your parents' place.
Right. And I think that it's reminding back to my time. I was similar to you. The anxious part of I wanted something to happen. I was ready for the next step. Yeah. People put so much emphasis nowadays on sports going into college, and that makes you puts more pressure on the kid, whether it's from them putting pressure on themselves, parents putting pressure on the kids, and a stress that this is like the do or die you have to do to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I think that's eventually it's going to work out, but in the moment it feels like when things aren't going right,
you have no idea where it's going to go, and like, is it even going to be something that you want? Like, is this what you want, or is this something you got to like make do until you get what you want?
Yeah. And I think that's a common thing that we all fight with. I thought for me, like, I went to South Carolina my freshman year. If I had gone back, I wish I'd gone to Wake Forest at the time. It's not because I don't appreciate the people at South Carolina, but Wake Forest gave me the feeling of I trusted, like I liked the feeling, but I thought of South Carolina could be better baseball because of the facilities, the development, or they were just very successful. So you get brought in by the bigger schools, but all these things, as we know, college athletics, it's for the kids, the amateurs. That's what they are now. Getting paid NIL is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But the coach's job is still to win.
Yep.
And that's their livelihood on the line. And that's something that I think kids forget about. You got to make sure you're going to go to a place where you feel like you're going to develop more as a man.
And even now, like, it's way more like volatile with that because college basketball is a business now. You might not want to know NIL. These coaches, they win one or two seasons and then they take off. We saw it a bunch with like a bunch of coaches that came out of nowhere. Florida Atlantic when they beat Purdue. Now the Florida Atlantic coach, I'm sorry, the Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue. Now he's out of there. Mm-hmm. Penn State, gets a couple of wins, gets to Texas before they ultimately lose. Michael Shrewsbury, I think his name is. They went well, but now he's taking the Notre Dame job. Like, it's a lot of like movement, and it's like it's almost impossible to know. And coaches will tell you what they want to tell you when they're recruiting you, saying, "Yeah, I'll be here."
Oh, they're going to fluff you up right there. Oh yeah, we're going to be. And again, I think we're saying we don't blame any coach for wanting to go and do the best thing for them and their family.
Not at all. Like,
but you are explaining right now the reality of the situation, that there's no guarantee that a better job comes tomorrow, that this coach isn't going to go try to do the best thing that he thinks for his career.
And he's not wrong for doing that. I think in the moment we get emotional as kids. We'll get emotionally attached to things and not understand the business side of things, especially with things like college sports. And, you know, I think now with kids coming up, they have to understand, look, this is a business.
Yeah.
I mean, you can love the guy, you can spend time with him and everything, you can go through the trenches, go through the wars, but it's business.
Yeah.
If an opportunity comes up, he's out of there. Just like for you, if there's an opportunity for you to transfer or, hey, NBA's calling, go into the draft combine, you do it.
Yeah.
You don't owe anything to anybody that you. Now again, you love the guys you play with, love the coaches you play for, but this is about your future. If the opportunity's there, you take it. There's been guys that have stayed in college too long when they should have gone out and entered the draft early in their careers, and like it 1 year changes so much.
Yeah.
I can remember like Jared Sullinger when he was at Ohio State. I thought he probably should have left his freshman year because he was that unstoppable.
He was dominant.
I mean, that was the only time that I felt totally helpless on the court. I was like, there's nothing I can do with this dude. He's absolutely there's nothing I can do. He should have gone to the draft his freshman year, but he came back and stayed. Had a decent year. Ohio State had a decent year, but his draft stock plummeted as opposed to what it would have been had he left his freshman year. So my thing is, look, coaches are going to do what they need to do. Players should do the same.
So what's your take then on now that everything's changed where you're working on the development? We'll segue a little bit to this. Development, because I was going to ask you about finding your development while you're at Penn State and then transitioning for you going to Maryland. But the development of some of these players now in the NBA or the college game, the teams that you know because of the setup, the Dukes, the Kentuckys, these schools that it's really the one and dones, right? You're not feeling, and it's different at least. So for baseball, you have to go at least, if you go to college, it's your junior year, or if you're at a certain age, you can be a sophomore eligible draft candidate, right?
Yeah.
For basketball, you go for 1 year, you can go. Because I don't know, I'm looking at this, and Kentucky and Duke's bringing in a lot of the top players, but are they all necessarily developing them the best that they could possibly do? Do you think that another school that can get you there for 3 or 4 years, or do you think it's case by case?
I think it is case by case, and I think a lot of these guys are leaving before they're actually ready, in my opinion. And even down to Kentucky and the Dukes of the world, they draft a lot based on potential. You know, this guy has the potential to be an all-star.
The ceiling.
Yeah, but instead of knowing where the player is right now, there's some guys, they could potentially be there, but they need time.
Yeah.
Like, it's rare to have Kobe, LeBron, Tracy McGrady, guys like that coming out of high school who just, you know, basically hit the ground running. LeBron James more than anybody I think you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, just hitting the ground running, and, like, he physically is ready for the league. So you can have the skill, but there's a different level of physicality from high school to college to NBA. These are grown men you're playing against with a different kind of strength that you haven't felt yet. Now, some players they figure it out and they get going. Like Paolo Banchero, this past year left early, and he's
Duke guy.
Yeah, he's had a pretty good year. I think he won Rookie of the Year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I got to check, but I mean, he had a great year. He was physically ready. To your point.
Yeah, and like some guys, and then there's some guys who are physically ready, but they don't have the skill.
Yeah,
and it's like,
or they're not their skill. So is that more their skill set needs to be refined more, or mentally?
I think mental is a big part of it because there's a different type of like pressure, a different type of responsibility when you're a pro.
Yeah,
as opposed to being a college kid. You're dealing with contracts now. You're dealing with money more than, I guess, like taking an NIL out for a minute. You're not really used to that kind of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Your entire life is changing.
Yeah.
You're a high draft pick. You're going to a new city you know nothing about. Playing against guys you don't know anything about. Coaches, again, we talk about how coaching changes in college. Hey, NBA coach guy can get fired tomorrow, and there's a new guy coming in.
Yeah.
And so you just have no idea. Like, you got to really be ready for the adjustment on the fly. You know, it's just a lot. It's a lot of things that go into it. Now, there's a lot of players who are ready.
Yeah.
But I think with the one and dones, I mean, we saw it in this past tournament. UConn won it all, and the teams that got to the Final Four, these guys are juniors, seniors, grad transfers. Like, you're not seeing like 5 freshmen roll the basketball out and make it to the Final Four.
They were a complete team that understood. The players understood who they were as players, and they could work well as a team. While some of the other teams had more talent potentially, or the potential you're talking about, but didn't know how to put that all together, and they needed a little bit more time. They needed more seasoning. That's always like the interesting part of college basketball.
Yeah, the teams that stay together and they know each other, it's like it's a big deal, especially come postseason time.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it shows. I mean, it's not just college. It's not just college basketball, but I think you see it the most with that because of the structure of how things are with people moving forward. Going back to your time there with Penn State. You were there for 3 total years, but 2 playing, correct?
Yep.
Talk to me about development there with Penn State, how you felt, how it was comfortable, and then when the opportunity then came to you going to Maryland.
Yeah, so I came in with a different coach. Ed Cholis at the time was the one who recruited me. I came in there. I was still dealing with Osgood-Schlatter's disease, which is like kind of like what happens with your patellar tendons.
Yeah, in your knees.
In the lower back, yeah. So I was playing in like my last high school game, walking like an old man, like just crazy back spasms. Like I couldn't dunk,
right?
Because jumping was just like that painful. Running was painful. So I came in with like kind of still dealing with that. I needed like some time to rehab. So I talked to my dad. I talked to coaches about it, and it was like the best thing we should do right now is let you rehab and get healthy and redshirt. Which at the time I was devastated because I never imagined like me like taking a year off from basketball, taking a year away from the game. Like I'm supposed to sit down and watch. Like that was tough, and I was thankful for like the support circle I had at the time, but it started to weigh on me like more and more as the season went on. Like I was in the weight room every day, like while the team practice on the road. Because I was actually allowed to travel at the time. I'm on the road, the guys are getting ready for the game. I'm in the weight room again, getting absolutely killed by the strength trainer. Who shout out Coach Brad Van Tel. That dude, I hated that dude, but I ended up loving him just for everything he did for me. And I was also skinny. I was like 200 pounds. They wanted me to put on like 40 pounds. It took me an entire year to get that. Boom, coaching change happens after we make the NCAAB tournament. New guy comes in, Coach Chambers. He's like, we want you to drop 20 pounds. So I'm laughing to myself. It's like, okay, so I literally spent a year trying to put on all this weight. And it was hard. It wasn't easy. My metabolism was going. So like every time we practice, I'm dropping 2-3 pounds. So it's like, I'm trying to like replace it and then put on weight while we're still practicing. So finally I'll get there and it's like now I got to drop 20 pounds, which ended up being an easy task. But with the change, the offense was changing. You know how it is when a new coach comes in. This isn't exactly his team. He's recruiting guys like that.
Yeah, it's no knock to it, but you're not one of his guys, and they're trying to evaluate who's there on the team.
Yeah.
What they're going to do moving forward. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, this is a business part of it, and just over time, it ended up not being like this the best place for me anymore for a multitude of reasons. And one day I get a call from my dad saying like, "Hey, there's a chance you might get to transfer to Maryland." And I paused a minute. I was like, "Stop! You're kidding! Like, there's no way. There's no way." Alex Lynn, who's now playing for the Sacramento Kings right now in the playoffs, he was in the draft.
Right.
He wore my favorite number, 25. So I'm like, this is crazy. This is just like there's no way this is happening right now.
This is meant to be right now.
Yeah, so he leaves, and then I get a call from Coach Turgeon, and he's like, yeah, there's a spot for you if you want to transfer here. And I was like, you kidding me? Hell yeah.
Next question. I'm already there.
Yeah, next question. I got my pass pad and everything, but it was hard. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, it was one of the hardest choices of my life to transfer and leave Penn State because I built a life there. I was with this girl at the time who was we spent a lot of time together. We were together for 5 years. Really built a life up there. Great friends.
Yeah.
Loved the community at State College. So it was hard to leave.
Right.
But I knew that the best thing for my career and for my mental at the time was to come home and play for the school of my dreams, which is Maryland. And I just remember the first day I walked in there, I was like, surreal. Like I took a ball and I made sure that I made my first shot. I was like, everyone shut up, get out of my way. I'm going to make my first shot so we can have a good look for the next couple of years. And then it hit me the first Maryland Madness that we had when I came home. I'm walking out. The light shines perfectly where like I can see my dad in the right corner. And I'm like, this whole full circle moment was just like, don't take that for granted. I remember just walking down and I'm pointing down as I'm walking down. I go make my dunk, and then I immediately run over to him and just give him a hug. Because I'm like, this is what I dreamed of since I was 9 years old. This is what I wanted right here. I'm wearing a Maryland jersey. I'm wearing the number. And there's my dad on the sidelines.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome that the moment, like not everyone has that moment where it comes back together, but it's literally going full circle.
Yeah, man.
You can pinpoint the exact moment at the madness, the Midnight Madness when you were 9, and then to be able in that spot.
It's just like I almost saw myself in that same spot as I was walking down and looking over to him. It was like, man, look, we here. It took us a long time, longer than we expected, but I think I always knew that I was going to have at least one game in Xfinity Center, whether I was going to be a Terp or I was going to be an opponent.
Yeah.
Because ironically, Maryland was moving to the Big Ten as I was transferring. So,
right.
Like, so I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I literally like pictured this. I'm like, okay, I'll still be a Penn State Nittany Lion, and I'm coming to Maryland, and I'm going to kick their ass.
Yeah.
It's like it's meant to be. Like, I'm either going to do that or I'm going to be a Terp. And it's crazy that it happened. And then ironically, my best game in college was against guess who? Penn State.
It's always how it works out, right?
Absolutely dominated.
And
same guys that were my roommates, teammates, same coaches.
Sports works in weird ways. I feel, and I do believe in that things are just meant to be. There are coincidences, but you can't make that shit up. You can't make that you're going to play well against the team that you play. And also, it's a phenomenon. Everyone says right now, people are complaining about the Orioles. They let a guy named Franchi Cordero go during spring training. It's mainly because you're picking and choosing guys. And what's Franchi do? He gets picked up by the Yankees. What's he do against the Orioles? The first series they play, he hits 2 bombs. It's like, all right, I swear to you, if he was still here, it just wouldn't have happened that way. But for you, that motivation just felt like it was just already written in stone. Like it was going to happen. But speaking of that, was there ever a time you didn't think this was going to happen? Like I know you're saying – yeah, like you believed it, you thought it would, whether you're going to be playing for Penn State or playing for Maryland. But during this whole process, was there ever a doubt that what your hope wasn't going to happen?
I was trying to be realistic with myself. I mean, I knew it was time for me to leave and come home at the time because, family stuff, and also just for me personally, I just wanted to come home. I was looking at Towson. I was looking at Loyola, Maryland. Jimmy Passos was still there at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at even Morgan State. I took a couple of visits there to try to be realistic. We're like, look, I don't think this Maryland thing is really going to happen. And even after I talked to coach, I was still kind of nervous because I couldn't go on their foreign trip. So I missed Penn State's foreign trip when they went to Belgium, and then I missed Maryland's trip as they went to the Bahamas. So I'm literally sitting at home, like training myself, running like miles every day, trying to keep myself like, am I still going to play next year? Like, or is something going to fall through? And like, now I'm screwed. So like we already turned away the other guys. We're thinking Maryland's going to happen. I was nervous. Yeah. And I think my dad probably wouldn't admit it, but he was probably a little nervous too about everything because just things happen. Things fall through, and it's like, thankfully, I came in first day of the fall semester in September, and I just never looked back.
Well, that's great because not everyone's going to have that. But I mean, again, just keeping the faith. Control what you can control, right?
Yeah,
that's all we can do. You have a great experience with Maryland. Turgeon, there's a lot more energy that's brought back to the team, to the program. Unfortunately, Maryland didn't want to, at least as far as the NCAA tournament's concerned, didn't accomplish what they strived out to do.
Yeah,
basketball's hard. It's not easy to just get back to where you want to get back to.
Yeah,
but as you're wrapping up, then you talked about this is where we're going to move forward. You talk to me about going professionally and going to play in Spain. You talked about this next stage. You had this great time playing your college career, but it wraps up, but you still want to play professionally. So walk me through, because I know some of it, but I know a lot of people would want to understand about the whole process playing professionally, where it's not just in the NBA.
First of all, I had to get an agent, and obviously I wasn't one of the primetime players in college sports at the time. So I needed to get more film of myself. I needed to get film of me showing what I could do, because reality is my role was not to be a scorer on that team. I wasn't meant to get 10, 15 shots a game. I was in there to do what my role was. And I needed to get back to, I guess, high school Jon in a way. So I answered a couple of semi-pro teams. There was one in Michigan that I was with for a while. We ended up actually traveling to the likes of the UK and Spain to play against other overseas teams that were willing to scrimmage with us.
Yeah.
And then later on that year, I ended up playing for them full time in Lake Michigan, and it was tough. It kind of gave me a precipice of what overseas basketball could become.
Yeah.
It's a lot of uncomfortable travel by bus. You may not always be traveling in the most glamorous ways like we were at Maryland. Private jets and all that. Free food, all that stuff is out the window.
Right.
So it kind of gave me a precipice of what that was going to be like. But there were times where it was tough. But there were times where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I did stop for a while. I ended up working for a while at up in Towson, University of Maryland, St. Joseph's Medical Center. Until my agent got the call. There was this combine that I went to. It was one last shot for me to really say, look, do I even have a future in this? Because I wasn't sure.
Right.
I was like, maybe this is where it was supposed to end. But lucky enough, I got to the combine. I was in Pennsylvania at the time. I showed out, did really well, and I ended up getting a call. Went to the island of Mallorca, which is off the coast of Barcelona. Beautiful place.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever get a chance to go to Palma, I would definitely recommend that for a vacation. But the season's going good. I'm averaging a double-double. My first game, I have I think 26 points and 17 rebounds. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm back.
It's easy. It's
I'm like, all right, cool. I'm back. This is where things get going. But There was a little bit of team turmoil. Like, the owner at the time didn't want to pay the team, stopped paying me. So I had a choice to make. I was like, am I going to play for free? Am I going to take a stand here and just kind of like say, look, I'm not going to pay until you play me. I mean, play until you pay me.
Yeah.
So I ended up sitting out for the last four games. It was stressful, but I knew I was doing the right thing. There was just a lot of stuff going on. And I came home, still had the intention of playing. I actually had an offer in Argentina, somewhere in Argentina, actually, to potentially go and play. But I had a moment where I was sitting on the stairs, Wi-Fi's in and out. It's very so I can't really talk to anybody.
Yep.
And I'm just sitting here, look up in the sky, and I was like, man, like, do I even still want to go through this? Do I really still want to go through all this stuff just to get a chance to play another game for not that much money? Or do I want to come home and actually build a sustainable career that I can look at now being 31, that is going somewhere, and I know it's going to go somewhere. There were so many what ifs, there were so many question marks that became just so much, a lot mentally for me to handle. This is for me. I'm not saying that anyone in that situation should give up or if you want to continue playing, do what you want to do.
Right.
But I had to be totally brutally honest with myself, saying, look, I can keep fighting this. I can keep going through this, trying to make scraps, and then maybe something will happen. Or I can come home and actually build something where I know it's going to grow and I know it's going to turn into a career for me where I can look at 35, 40s, down the road when I have a family. And again, toughest decision of my life. To this day, I still miss it, but I knew that it was the right thing to do for me just for the future.
All right, so now we're going back to where you brought up that earlier of your identity's involved with the sport for so long, and you feel like it is a part of you, right? It's become what you've done, but you just said it's the toughest decision of your life, and clearly it messed with you mentally, even after you made the decision.
Yeah, because when I went back to work, it was like I still look like a basketball player. I still look like I'm in good shape, thankfully. And every day it's like, do you play basketball? Like, why are you not playing basketball? What are you doing here? This was every single day, at least 20 times a day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I got to get out of here. I got to go away. I got to take a break. I got to walk away somewhere just to kind of get away from people because, look, I get it. You see a guy like me walking down the street, it's like your first question is, he must play basketball. He's tall. Like, you're not going to say are you a doctor or are you trying to do something else? No, you're connected to basketball wherever you go. And that was my life. I understood that. But now that I know that it's over and I stopped, it just, every day it just got harder and harder and harder to deal with it. It was just like someone just kept, just pricking me with a little stick or whatever, just saying, answer the question. What are you doing?
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, man, this is I'm not sure if I can really do this. I battle, sometimes even to this day, I battle with I'm just kidding myself. This isn't me. This isn't my life. I was meant to be only in basketball, whether it's coaching or playing. Everything you're doing right now is a joke. You think you're trying to make a life outside of this, but you're not going to do it. It's a joke. Those are the things that I had to fight mentally. I've conquered that over the years, but it's still there. The urge to play is still there. The urge to. There's times where I can't watch basketball for so long. I turn it off because it starts to piss me off. It's like, man, I'm good. I'm good enough to play. I know that I know some of the guys that I came up with that are still playing. It's like, man, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and it's like, let me turn this game off before I start getting upset and try to find other things to kind of not divert my attention, but again discover who is Jon without basketball.
Yeah. I mean, so who is Jon without basketball?
Today I have a more clear picture than I ever have. I'm a guy that is expressive, is emotional, but has the ability to do things like just create. The poetry book that I came out with. My second poetry book that I just finished is going to be coming out this year. So I'm an author. I'm a guy that loves to have fun. I'm a guy that likes to get silly on Instagram. A guy that likes to hang out with his friends and we'll sprinkle in basketball every now and then. But I got so much potential that I can do whatever I want with my career, and I can. The main thing is that I can and I'm capable. But the main thing is I have to believe in myself that I can do that outside of basketball. And today I have a much clearer picture of what that is now than I did back then.
So is it fair to say, even though it's hard to move forward, especially when you're afraid because you love something so much, you'll find out that there's a lot more to your life than just the one thing you thought that this was what it was supposed to be.
It's a whole lot more to life, man. Like, and I'm so much more at peace with my decision now than I was back then. Like, it's crazy. I'm okay with it. I'm actually okay with, like, saying, you know what, I'm not playing, but it's not going to kill me. I can watch a full playoff game. I can break it down on my podcast or talk about it with my friends. Like, man, look, this is fun. That's cool. I can talk about the game because I understand it. I can break it down and everything, and it's just, but it doesn't kill me anymore to say, like, that I'm not playing anymore because I see, like, what my life is starting to shape up with without it. And at some point, we all do. We got to like say, like, look, man, this was great. We loved it so much. We spent a lot of time together. We had beautiful moments with our teammates that we made, built some great relationships. But at some point in time, it's got to end for all of us. And we got life beyond our sport. The sport can't be a life because it's going to move on without us.
Yeah,
in a heartbeat.
Whether you like it or not, whether you can try to play as long as you want, anything, but either you are so damn good that you have the choice, and like not saying the choice, my dad eventually was going to have to walk away, but I didn't understand as a kid there's the rarity of him playing 20 years, like playing 20, like it's.
Who does that?
I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's a common thing. I'm like, holy shirts and pants, it ain't. But the point is, you're right, it ends. Yeah. Whether it's you play for a year, you play for 20, you play for anything in between, there's an expiration for it. Yep. And I think it's interesting to hear this from you because, I just retired in 2022, I guess last summer. Wow, I'm losing track of it. So still under a year. I have the same feelings. Like I'm in the media stuff right now, so I'm going on TV to talk about the Orioles, doing the pregame, do lessons. But to your point, I sit there and think, I believe I can still do it. I know that there's more. I know I didn't play as well at certain times, but I feel if I got healthy and you have these thoughts go through your head, and part of it is you don't want to let go of it.
Yeah, and then you look at like who your dad is. Like people see me as Ernie Graham's son, and it's like, well, what are you doing? Why are you not playing?
Yeah,
how come you didn't make it? I even hear like people was like taking little jabs and everything at my dad, like, oh, his son didn't make it.
Yeah,
I'm like, yo. You trying to put me in a box where like I'm not gonna let you do that. Yeah. See, when I first stopped, I let people start to put me in this box where, like, this is all I am. I'm not doing that anymore. Like nobody's gonna put me in a box. Nobody's gonna tell me who Jon Graham is but me. And I finally got there when I discovered opening up and accepting who this all ties in with me accepting myself with interests that I have outside of basketball that I always had.
Yeah.
And expressing myself like I always have. That all came together with me accepting, look, man, you're so much bigger than this sport. Yeah. That you just are now scratching the surface of what else you can be. So just never let anybody put you in a box.
I know but that's the thing, and you just said about people calling you Ernie's son.
Yep.
That rings a bell. I till this day, everyone still refers to me as Cal's son, Cal's kid. I don't think anyone ever shouldn't say that. A lot of people that know me, the people that know you are going to call you by your first name, but everyone else, they'll call you by your last name. Jerry Sandusky was actually, when I had him on, and he even said, the people that know you really well, if your last name's a part of your nickname, so be it. But most people, if they know you really well, it's by your first name basis. The last name, if they're calling you, oh, that's Graham's son, that's Ripken's son, they don't know you as well.
Right.
But that's how a lot of people would refer to me. And I think for a while, too, and it sounds like for you, you come to a point of it, but you're like, man, like I got a name. I'm Ryan. Yep, it's nice to meet you. That's Jon, if you haven't met him yet.
Right.
But I love the fact you're saying you accepted who you were. Because I think for the longest time, and this again, you're 31 now, right?
Yep. Yeah, man. Old timer.
Yeah, well, dude, I'm turning 30 this summer, so I'm right there behind you.
Welcome.
Yeah, dirty 30. You had your dirty 30 last year.
I did.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but the point of it is there isn't a time frame when you're going to accept it, when you're going to get comfortable with who you are. It might not be at this point. It might not be when you're in your late 20s or early 20s, or might not even be in your 30s.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different set. But each of us is possible being more comfortable with who we are.
And take your time. I mean, everyone has a different time frame for acceptance with anything. Accepting that something's over, accepting that something is starting new. Everyone has their time frame. Don't let anyone speed you up or slow you down. You follow your process and you deal with it the best way that you can, in the healthiest way you can. And when you arrive to it, it's a freeing feeling, and you're gonna feel so much better about yourself, and you're gonna discover, hey, I'm capable of other things other than the sport. I'm capable of doing a lot of things.
Hey, your job, your sport, your work doesn't define you.
Absolutely.
It doesn't, but we always think it does. When you put so much time and effort into something, you think that's what it's going to be, but that's awesome. Well, hey, let's just do some quick hitters here. We'll wrap it up and move forward. So since we'll start, we're Baltimore fans. We'll go with this. Lamar Jackson, Ravens. It's been talked about before. Do the Ravens have a deal with him before the season begins in September?
I got to tell you, man, to be honest, I'm getting more and more nervous by the day. I don't know anymore. I was very confident that they would get it done and Lamar would come back and we would just all say, hey, we had an episode, but it's over. He's back. Let's get back to doing our thing. We signed Odell Beckham Jr. I have a hard time believing that OBJ would sign with us not knowing something about this Lamar Jackson situation. We don't know if he's going to play on a franchise tag for a year at the very least, or a long-term deal is on the table. I'm nervous. I really, really hope it gets done, but I'm just not sure right now.
I'm with you, but we're keeping the faith. All right, we can talk about my opinions later on. No one cares about that. Next one here. So you talked about opening up to yourself and enjoying and being on social stuff. Who is someone out there, if it's a comedian, entertainer, whoever, who's a person you love to follow, listen to, watch? It doesn't have to be your favorite. It can be one of the favorites.
I mean, Shaquille O'Neal is one of them for me.
Oh, Shaq
I love Shaq, man. It's just like you talk about a guy that like literally is expressing himself without the game. That's a guy I love. I love to see him on television. Love to see him on the socials. He does his little crazy stuff with his kids and everything. That's a guy that I watch, and it's like he enjoys himself being Shaquille O'Neal. Like it's got nothing to do with his Hall of Fame career. He's totally just like in the media. He's doing his own thing, and he's being Shaq.
He's the perfect example. I mean, for people that forget, he was one of the most dominant players in NBA history.
Yeah.
But because of who he is, people forget the fact that he was such a stud basketball player.
Like this guy's an EDM DJ. Like this guy's like all
he's
over
coming to Baltimore.
Yeah, like I missed him a couple times. He came. He was supposed to come during my birthday weekend last year, but he ended up being like 4 hours late, so I never got to see him.
Yeah.
But he's an awesome EDM DJ, and it's like I swear he should literally have his own comedy show, like legit series. I would watch it because he's great television.
Oh, he's made for TV. He for sure is. That's a great one. All right. Well, we got a tangerine LaCroix here, which people can't really see. I've been sipping on some. Your drink of choice, though, when you're going out?
I'll probably start with a seltzer, probably a High Noon or a Simply Lemonade Spike.
Okay, yeah.
Then as the night goes on, if I'm getting going, probably a cranberry vodka.
Yeah, you're. I forgot. I can't chug well or shotgun or things like that. Your ass definitely can.
Yeah, there's a video out there that should not be seen of me trying to shotgun. To this day, I'm not that good. I've gotten a little better. I'm a little better than that night, but I'm still not quite a pro.
Yeah, you're not. Full disclosure, going to a tailgate with Jon this year. If you ask him, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Maybe we'll have that video surface for one of these clips.
Oh God, please don't.
Yeah, no, we will. Where was I going? Oh, are you a fan of crepes?
Not really.
Is it because the name is crepes or because they're really thin pancakes?
I actually tried them. It's more so because they're thin pancakes. If I'm going to have a pancake, I'm going to like fire up that Aunt Jemima and like just kind of mix it myself, make a big thick pancake. I don't want to like do a little small like little crepe.
So it's not it's not the actual name that throws you off. It's just that they're really thin.
Oh yeah, the name definitely throws me off for sure. Like I was like when I first heard, I was like, what the hell is a crepe? And then they showed it to me. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This is a small thin pancake.
Was that before or after Talladega Nights with Ricky Bobby? Because he has this thing of like, oh, I love those.
No, honestly, it was right when that time when the movie came out. It's crazy you mentioned that. It was right around that same time. I was like, well, everyone's talking about crepes now because of freaking Ricky Bobby. I'm like, what the hell is a crepe? So I finally see it, and it's like I was less than impressed.
Yeah, okay. Well, because I like the really thin pancakes, but the crepe initially threw me off. That's why it's going to be a phenomenon sweeping the nation about what I like thicker pancakes, but the crepe it's different. Yeah. All right. With the NBA finals or NBA playoffs going on, who do you think is going to come out of the East and the West?
I got to tell you, man, the Western Conference is vulnerable right now. Like, it's super vulnerable. I don't believe in Denver. I don't believe in from the start, I didn't believe in the top 3 seeds. These were new guys. Denver, Memphis, Sacramento. They've had great seasons. Obviously, they're fun to watch, but everyone's talking about when does the torch get passed in the Western Conference. It's not going to be this year. The Lakers are already up 2-1 on Memphis, as I predicted. Dylan Brooks, kind of talked his way into a problem.
Yeah, we never even talked about that. Could be a different thing. I feel like if you talk smack, it usually doesn't work. When you call out one of the best players in the world that he's old.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, this guy's asking to get embarrassed.
I should have hammered Lakers money line spread everything.
Literally put everything you have on the Lakers that next
should have all ended, but it should be a good one tonight. So, okay, if with all these teams, who's coming out of the West?
I got to tell you, if Golden State gets past Sacramento, I think they're going back to the finals.
Wow. All right, so if it's Golden State, who's in the East?
I got Boston. I know everyone talks about Milwaukee being the most complete team in the NBA, and they've been great all year, but something about Boston is just the ability to score the basketball and like how much depth they have. Tatum and Brown are just fantastic together on the floor.
Unreal.
The bench is great. Al Horford's just been to continue to be a staple for them this late in his career. I think Boston has everything they need to beat a Milwaukee, and I think they're the most complete team in the East, and they should come out. But wouldn't shock me if Milwaukee found a way to get there as well. But for now, I'm going to say Boston.
All right, so we got Boston, Golden State. All right, I'm going to do a futures bet, put that down. Sprinkle, just a little bit of a sprinkle. Yep. Sprinkling, speaking of that, what's a couple foods that you cannot turn down?
Crab cakes. I'm from Maryland. Grew up on it. My mom still makes the best crab cakes anywhere. I challenge anybody to go up against my mom. So crab cakes and just buffalo wings. This is two things that like I just trying to eat better, trying to cut down on like what I've been eating so I can lose some weight. But those are two things I'm never going to be able to give up.
I'm not good either. Crab cakes, Maryland got it as well. Crab cakes in football, that's what Maryland does. And buffalo wings. Okay, boneless in or out?
Bone in.
Bone in?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, last question then. One of the best pieces of advice that you've had over your life, or just a piece of advice that really resonates with you?
Be you. We were talking about it most of the show, but best advice I ever got was just two simple words: be you. That means be you in the midst of when it feels uncomfortable, when you're around people, and just be you when you're around your friends. Don't change up. Like it's more work to pretend to be someone else than it is to be yourself.
Hey, that's simple. And what'd you say earlier? It was be yourself, enjoy yourself. Was that the term, I believe?
Yes, sir.
I love it, man. Well, hey, that's all I got. After like 4 hours of doing this, we're done. But JG, I appreciate you coming on, man, and we'll talk soon.
Buddy, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. That does it for this week's episode of Off Script with Rip. I hope you enjoyed the sit down with Jon Graham. And as a reminder, please like and subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. All of this is beneficial to me because at the end of the day, I want to make this podcast better for all the viewers and listeners out there. So that is it for the week. I will see you next week for episode 10 of Off Script with Rip.